This Serie A race is going to the wire. It's probably going to the final day because Inter, they've slipped up. They have slipped up. And you know what it is, guys? It happens in the business end of the season. The pressure. Sometimes you begin to prioritize different competitions. Listen, they always say winning one league, seen as we're speaking about the Serie A, winning one Scudetto is tough. But going back to back, you wouldn't imagine how tough it is. You wouldn't imagine how difficult it is. Yes, you've got the same squad, but now you need to reinvent this squad. Now you need to make sure that the opposition are not too familiar with the way you play. Tweak things, integrate new players. Yo, Inter, they have just drawn to Parma. It definitely not a game that I was expecting. Definitely not a performance I'm used to when it comes to Inter, but I'd be a liar if I told you that because the alarm bells for me were there against Udinese. Okay? I don't know what it is about Inter. I feel like the time has come for me to really give my opinion on Inter. I don't know if it's like a mentality issue. I don't know if it's just a case of they feel like the Serie A is wrapped up and they can afford to take their foot off the gas and play in third gear. Maybe it's the fact that they've got their eyes on a competition that they haven't won before, like under Simone Inzaghi, his camp of players, the Champions League. But let's just say the alarm bells were there against Udinese because they got away with it. They go once again, they go into the game 2-0 up at half time against Udinese. Everybody's thinking smooth. The game is done and dusted. Simone Inzaghi does what he usually does best, which is he takes off some of his best players at half time, at the hour mark. And then the second half was just all Udinese. And they managed to get themselves one goal, but they couldn't get themselves a draw. And I feel like so many people turned around and said, fair enough. Inter, they walk away with 3 points, but that performance isn't the most pleasing. That performance is worrying. When you take off your best players and the replacement, the rotational pieces, can't step up and maintain the same level of performances, you are in trouble when you're still competing for 3 different trophies in the business end of the season. Fast forward a week later, Inter 2-0 up against Parma. And then at halftime, Bastoni, he comes off. A few minutes later, you see Martinez come off. You see Chalanoglu come off. Come the 90th minute, Parma 2, Inter 2. I genuinely don't know. I'm really beginning to tell myself it's a mentality thing. Because listen, whether you're a starter, whether you come off the bench, maintain the same level of performance, maintain the same level of commitment, maintain the same level of physicality in terms of tracking back, tracking your man, occupying your zones, maintaining shape. Parma could have won that game. Pellegrino at the end, he could have won that game for his team. And if they did, it would have been wild because when you look at the table now, Inter, there's a 4-point gap between them and Antonio Conte's Napoli. Fair enough. Antonio Conte has to go to Bologna on Monday against Vincenzo Italiano. Hey, that game is going to be wild. That game is just going to be pure fireworks. You've got Vincenzo Italiano trying to secure top 4. He knows he's got tough games. Like from now up until the end of the season, he's got tough games. So getting 3 points in a game that nobody really expects Bologna to get 3 points, it's a massive boost. But Antonio Conte also now knows Inter have dropped points for 1. And for 2, once Napoli take off Bologna from their fixture schedule, in my opinion, they will go unbeaten from now up until the end of the season. The majority of their games are against teams in the bottom half. And fair enough, these might be teams fighting for relegation. So there's something on the line for them. Napoli will win those games. Fair enough. A month ago, they drew 0-0 to Venezia. But listen, they can smell blood. They can smell blood at the San Siro when it comes to Inter. Their last 2 games, the back-to-back performances, they haven't been convincing. And you could see, once key players are taken off, you can get a beating of this Inter team. And fair enough, like when you look at Inter, it's a lack of investment. A lot of the players are old. they're relying on dudes that they shouldn't really be relying on when you bear in mind they're competing for Champions League, they're competing for the Coppa Italia, they're competing for the Serie A. But let's just say that performance against Parma, it wasn't the most convincing. And do you know what it is about Inter? As I feel like so many times when they've got the name, when they've got the game in control, when they create opportunities, they don't capitalize. They don't turn the 2 into 3. They don't turn the 3 into 4, especially as of late. A 2-0 lead, like, have you guys ever played FIFA? And they always turn around and tell you a 2-0 lead on a game of FIFA is the most dangerous lead to have. Because with 2-0, it's not too big of a lead for you to take your foot off the gas and get complacent and get comfortable. Because once the opposition get one and momentum is on their side, they will keep mounting the pressure. Parma, they should have won. Udinese, they put up a ridiculous fight. And this is now an Inter team that they know in 2 weeks' time, well, we've got midweek games now against Bayern. Then after 2 weeks, we've got a midweek game against Milan. Listen, the games, they're coming quick and fast for Simone Inzaghi. And at the end of the day, he needs to find a way to manage his squad. There's a reason why players get taken off at halftime. There's a reason why players get taken off on the 60th minute. For me, Chalanoglu, I feel like he's been amazing ever since he's put his injuries aside. But when Chalanoglu comes off this pitch, all control is lost from Inter's side. Fair enough. He's the deep blind playmaker. Fair enough. He's the regista. Fair enough. He's the guy that puts his foot on the ball and dictates play. Listen, Inter's board. They need to look at Chalanoglu's season. They need to look at the importance that he has on this team, the impact, and tell themselves, if this dude is still going to be at Inter next season, there needs to be a good enough replacement, because you can clearly see 31 years of age. Injuries are catching up to him. For a team like Inter that likes to compete on all fronts and they like to compete for all trophies, you need to have players that can step up when your more senior players get a rest. Inter this season, whenever the what do you want to call them? Whenever the B team players step up, whenever the bench players come into the fold, they haven't been good enough. They really haven't. Like, it's a problem. It's a problem that requires addressing in the summer. Because listen, this is an Inter team that's full of form, that's full of star players. They can still keep going for the next 2-3 years. But at the same time, they've got players that are aging. Aging players, they begin to decline physically. When you take into consideration they're being forced to play every 2-3 days, their decline will be quicker. So for me, that draw against Parma, I'll be real. Like, Antonio Conte is sat laughing. Antonio Conte is sat licking his lips. But listen, you can sit down and lick your lips. You need to get the job done on Monday. And I feel like he'll be sat telling himself, I wish I had one of those easier games on Monday. And then Vincenzo Italiano later, Bologna. Listen, if he wants to give his team a boost, if he wants to listen, if I was Antonio Conte, I would sit every single one of those players before the game down and tell them, listen, Inter, the performances, they're beginning to fade away. Inter, mentality, they look complacent, they look too comfortable. Maybe it's arrogance. Inter, they've still got their eyes on other cups, on other trophies. Inter are not as fortunate as us, where we play every 7 days. Inter play every 2-3 days. Okay, get Vincenzo Italiano's Bologna out the way. And when I say get them out the way, get the 3 points and the title was yours. That's exactly what I would tell the players. Because I would tell them, from after the Bologna game, every game is winnable. Okay, and on top of everything, you still have the luxury of playing every 7 days. Inter, whether Napoli win against Bologna or not, they still have to play every 3 days. If Napoli beat Bologna, which I think is going to be a ridiculous game, I'll be real, my prediction is a draw. But if they were to beat Bologna, I think the title is Napoli's. I'll be honest with you guys. If Napoli beat Bologna, I think the title is theirs. As much as this Inter team might have better quality, and I feel as much as Inter's overall squad gets criticised for a lack of rotational players, I still feel like their rotational players are better than Napoli's. Napoli, for me, it's a starting 11, maybe 12, 13 players, okay? The fact that they can play once a week, they get the recovery, they get the rest, they can plan for the opposition, whilst Inter are now juggling Champions League football against German champions in Bayern Munich. Then they've got Coppa Italia, Milan, who are trying to salvage their season. Inter they've still got tougher games than Napoli. It's going to be crazy. I'll be honest with you guys. It's going to be crazy. But like I said, If I was Conte, I would sit every one of my players and tell them, listen, this is the biggest battle of the season. Win this game, we go 1 point behind Inter, and all the other games are in our favour, and I trust you guys to win those games. But listen, Inter, if they had won this game, it would have put them in a better position. But I guess time will tell. And I'll catch you guys on another one.